Oh, this is professional, Jackson. Look at you.
Thank you.
I thought I was gonna give like you in your dorm room and everything.
Mm-mm. No, I didn't want you to see the posters and the very clean clothes and the no trash. I wanted to give the this
Yeah,
is a professional recording studio that I had to reserve with my computer.
exactly. You are Jackson Doane. So
Yeah.
that's what you gotta show out. Hey guys, we are back with another one of CCA's interview, which is part of our outreach series. For those who don't know, my name is Aaliyah. I am the community engagement specialist here at CCA and a facial difference advocate where I enhance public awareness of and education on individuals with visible differences by amplifying voices within the craniofacial community. I too was born with a facial difference called golden heart syndrome that came with a long road of surgeries, therapies, and a lot of rehabilitation. But as you already know, it never stopped me from achieving any of my goals. So today, guys, I am joined with my good friend, the best advocate that I know in the game. His name is Jackson Doane. How are you today?
I am doing great. 2 years and some change after meeting you, we finally scheduled and got this interview up going. So I'm excited to like record one of our conversations because we talk a lot about advocacy, but we've never recorded it. This is like if we had a chance to save the lost tapes of like the library of like Alexandria, this would be what was in there, one of our conversations. So I'm excited that we're finally getting to talk and getting to record it as well.
No, I agree. You've been booked and busy. How you been?
I've been good. I just turned 21, so that's been really good. Fall semester started back up, junior year at Washington and Lee University. So it's been busy, but it's the type of busy where you're excited for the work because you know it's like the stepping stone to just really awesome things. So it's like a good busy.
Definitely, definitely. And ever since we met, you've already achieved so much. And when I first met you, you just came off as a genuine and dedicated person. And I just want to say, like, I genuinely cherish our friendship and the work that we do. And as you mentioned, like, it motivates us, and I think it's so important that we show and amplify our voices. Like, what inspired you boldly to embrace your story? Because, growing up for me, it really took a lot of years for me to understand my facial difference and understand, why I have a facial difference and understand that now it's a way for me to advocate and that it is a gift of mine. What gave you the courage to speak your story?
Well, just for reference, as you know, I was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate. I've had 11 surgeries, all the other medical stuff, which I'm sure I'll mention. But I don't know, when I was younger, I always remember like wanting to talk, and not necessarily just about like, my cleft lip and palate, because especially when you're that young, you might know something's different, but like the ability to use the correct verbiage to describe how you're feeling, that's something that comes with time, intention, and age.
Right.
Especially when I was younger, I always just felt like it was like people treated you a little differently. You might not know why, but they did. And so I always felt like people really didn't listen to me. And it was like I would always try to like be involved with certain things and people wouldn't involve me. And this is when I was like elementary school age. So you're at the age where you're still trying to figure that out. And so of course, because I never really had that itch scratched when I was younger of like getting to be heard or just like feeling like something I said mattered, I think it just festered up inside of me. And, finally, I got involved with Operation Smile, which is the organization that I typically call home, in like right between eighth grade, ninth grade year. So this would have been back in like 2018. So I would have been 14 about when I started getting involved. And I ended up going to one of their international student leadership conferences. We call them ISLCs. And there, for the first time, I met someone else that was born with a cleft lip and cleft palate. Her name was Christy. We call her Nurse Christy. You've gotten to meet her. She's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think I just realized because I went to this conference and I wasn't like there was no original plan for me to speak or anything. And then about halfway through the week when I met Christy, and Christy's like an actual adult with like a job and she's a nurse. And so she is we're not exactly the same age group, but it was talking to her like I realized it was how crazy it was that I could know someone for like a minute and it was like just because they have a similar facial difference to me or have one at all, it was like that barrier that comes with meeting someone new, it's just non-existent. And it made me realize I was like, gosh, like if I can talk to someone like this and like she cared what I had to say. And I was talking to other people, other student volunteers who were there with Operation Smile, and people were like really interested in what I had to say. And for the first time in my life, I was like, does like what I have to say, like, is there like a genuine value to this? Because I always felt that there is, but when you don't ever feel that someone tells you there is, it can make you doubt yourself. And so then, like halfway through this conference, they were like, "Would you like to speak in front of the volunteers?" And there was, I want to say, like 300 people there, and I'm like 14, maybe 15 years old. Anyways, I'm freshman in high school, right? I'd never spoken about any of this before. And like the morning of, I sat down and I was just like, let me write down like what I think and like what I want people to know. Because I was like, what if this is my only chance to like ever speak? And as we know now, like that was not at all the case. But I realized I was like, I just want what I have to say to matter for a minute. And I
Mhm.
went and spoke and shared my story. And the feedback I got, I was like, what I say does matter.
Right.
And I was like, like my story has the potential to really help other people. And I think just that one time when I was 14 years old at an Operation Smile conference and I just spoke, like I think it made me realize that there is a lot of power and value behind our personal stories. And that was the first time in my life I realized it after feeling that that was the case my whole life. But that was the first time in my life where I was like, I think like I might matter a little bit. And that's like a really funny thing, but that would be when I first realized that my story was important. And then since then, I guess since 2018, so what are we, 7 years removed from that, I've been sharing my story on every platform with tons of people all over. So I mean, it has just been I got on the roller coaster having no idea where it would take me, and we are still going strong. So
Do you remember how 14-year-old Jackson felt when he shared his story?
I remember being really nervous. And I guess thankfully I had done speech and debate in middle school. And so like I had like a little bit of like the foundation just for like, when you're speaking, you look at the audience, like the stuff you try to teach like little kids when they're speaking. Yeah. But it was like this wasn't about like the Cuban embargo or like should we have standardized tests. This was about like who is Jackson Doane? And like can you speak about something that you don't talk to people about? And I remember just being so nervous. And then afterwards when I was like looking at everybody and I could just see all these faces, and I was like, not only did they just listen to what I had to say, but like
They care.
people, like they took it in, they cared, you're right. And so for me, it was like, I just took a risk. And it's like the thing of like, when I look back at it, that's probably one of the risks that like I am most thankful for in my life that I took. So I was scared, but like I'm a million times thankful that I did that.
And would you say you realized you found your gift too? Because you have a great way of speaking. You're very articulate, very eloquent. Come on, Jackson.
No, I appreciate it. And I do think like I said, I thought like I always knew I had a voice, but I think that was the first time I like had like because you're always hardest on yourself, right? Like you want yourself, and I think that was the first time where I was like, there's some proof to you, Jackson. Like keep going. Like th this is the proof you needed to start speaking.
Right. And as I mentioned, we met at Ensuring Lasting Smiles in
We
DC.
did September of 2023. I still have the picture.
He remembers the date, y'all. But it was so funny because we known each other on social media, and
Mhm.
it's so funny because I always speak to you about this. I saw you, I'm like, kind of fangirly, low key, but then I'm like telling my mom, I'm like, Mom, like I think that's my friend Jackson. And then I see you in the corner giving me the eye. I'm like, oh, who's gonna go up first? And then I had to go up the first. I had to be the bigger
I
person.
don't remember. I think it may have been the other way around, but we can let the story slide out as we need it to be.
Oh, I
No, I mean
think I right.
it was like I said, I mean we've known each other for I mean we met like mid-September 2 years ago. So we've known each other for 2 years. And I mean in the stuff we've done together in that time, been all over the states. We've run a marathon together. I mean, and I just feel like since I've met you, I feel like I've seen a lot more of like a path in advocacy.
Right. Thanks to you for the invite. Thank you for, welcoming me open arms with Operation Smile. Like if it wasn't for you, I would not be informed about, even though I had like a little bit of information about cleft lip and palate, but like you like literally welcomed me. And I truly appreciate that because you didn't have to. And you actually educated me on different ways of advocacy. How you told me how you do with the puppets, raunchy, and who's my girl? What was her name?
You had a Kua
Akua.
puppet,
And
yeah.
I think that's so beneficial for us because we are advocate for these teens and kids, and I feel like that is such a different and special way to share our stories and not just amplify our story, but other stories within the craniofacial community. And that leads me to my next question. How did that idea come about? And how has this changed your way of advocacy?
The puppetry.
Yeah, the puppetry. Yes, we want to.
So my freshman year of college, it it was a great year and I met a lot of great people, but it didn't I realized after that that I needed to take a break. Even though I just started college, I was like, I'm gonna take some time because I'm not where I wanted to be with certain things. And that's not necessarily a negative thing. And I think it's good to know when it's time to take a step back. And I did. And so I spent a year and a half in Virginia Beach. And of course, that's where Operation Smile's global headquarters is. And I had gotten an opportunity to work as the curriculum developer. And of course, I'm still in my ambassador role at this point since I'm like 5 years into that. And they had this idea for a project because they've really been wanting to, how can we help communicate this message to younger kids? Because with Operation Smile, like, they do the presentations at the school, similar to some of the stuff that CCA does. But it's like, a lot of the pictures and even the age gap, like I know we're not that old, but to an 8-year-old, we're like light years older than they are. And so there was a lot of brainstorming. How do we bring this message to children? And we found that the puppet idea, which was to create this family of puppets who are from all different places on Earth, so they represent different backgrounds, identities, like a range of different cleft conditions, so unilateral, bilateral, palate, all a whole good mix of that. Because in real life, there is a whole good mix of people who have it. And with Operation Smile, we wrote these shows and songs and began taking them to these schools. And I think we realized, and I got so very thankful I got to do this. I got to lead up the puppeteering part of it. So in addition to, I got to share my story like through the lens of these puppets. And so the one that I would often control, his name was Wanchi. He was a little boy who had a unilateral cleft lip, and he would tell his story of going to school and going to elementary school, and like people would not be very kind to him. And it was like he felt like even though he was good at soccer, people didn't always want to play with him. And it made him feel like maybe he wasn't good at soccer or maybe he wasn't worthy of being friends with people. And that type of story, even to, a child that may not have any sort of condition or may not have even anyone in their family with any sort of difference, it it's really palatable for them to be like, this is someone that could be in my grade who might be feeling lonely. And even then, this too, the stories of people with visible differences, people without visible differences often can relate to them. Because everyone in their life has those moments, those periods, even maybe chapters of their lives where they felt like they've been the other. They've been the black sheep, and so being able to share his story like through my story with all these puppets, and they've been everywhere. They've been out of the country now. They've been all of these schools all up and down the East Coast at this point. It's a magical thing. And that's why I love performance, entertaining, and puppeteering. You've gotten to hold the puppets before too, but I mean it's a truly magical initiative. We call them the Puppet Pals. So, it's like I said, it's something I'm really thankful for and something that I'm hoping very soon to get back up on its feet. Because I mean the people who helped create the idea, it's still a wonderful idea and they know that. And we're going to get the brain power back at it and get it going again. I'm really excited for that. And
Oh,
the puppet show's official name is the Puppet Pals Smile Show. And you can follow them at Operation Smile Community on Instagram.
we're gonna place that down there below.
Yeah.
But as I was saying, because when you introduced me to puppetry, I was like, wait, puppetry? And then when you started, informing me about it and how it's very therapeutic for these kids because not only they see representation in us, but they see representation in toy-like figures, which makes them even
Mhm.
more, I guess, expressive, more open to
Oh yeah.
understand.
We've had students share secrets with the puppets. Like we have students who are very scared at the beginning because the puppets have large visible differences just like people in real life do. And at
Okay.
the end they want to hug and kiss all over the puppet. And it's just great to show that like 20 minutes with a kid can change the way they treat people with differences or disabilities for the rest of their life. 20 minutes with them one time can change the way they treat people for the rest of their life. And that's why the work we do is so important.
Vital. And I tell everyone it really starts with the kids. I remember seeing Wanchi at ACPA. Remember? His hands was down. But I'm so glad you brought him to a conference like that to inform other people, okay, this is a beautiful, different, unique way on where advocacy can be shown in a classroom.
Oh yeah, it's not just speeches in front of like a bunch of people in suits. It's like on the ground work. It's things like spending one-on-one time with people. It's things like puppets. It's things like social media. There is no one right way to be an advocate. And in fact, the best advocates do all different types of stuff.
All types of stuff. Like I tell everyone, if you want to become advocate, you do not have to mimic me. You don't have to mimic Jackson. The only person I need you to be is yourself, and it just leads to your creativity. Like do anything. You do not have to stand up there, do a whole PowerPoint presentation. No, that's not for everyone. Advocacy is supposed to be fun and to be authentic, you know? But this leads me to my next question. You have all these leadership roles, advocacy. How do you manage it? And wait, let me brag a little bit. You are also the commissioner for human rights in Virginia Beach. What was it like stepping into that role for the first time?
I'll answer the commissioner question first and then talk about like how I try to manage everything. But
Yeah,
I
go
when I
ahead.
was in Virginia Beach, because of course, that age group, if you're like in your hometown, you're not at college, there's a lot less young people there. And
Mhm.
when you're in high school too, you're not really focused on what's happening in your community, you're focused on what's happening at your high school. And
Right,
so, being an adult back in Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is where I'm from, where I live when I'm not at college or out doing awesome stuff,
right.
I was really curious, like, what's happening, like, in my community. And so I got involved with some like local politics stuff, which has been super rewarding to realize like the stuff that impacts us the most is the stuff that like our neighbors are making decisions on. And I realized that, I was getting involved with the city council and the school board, and I realized that my city had a human rights commission, which are appointed citizens who are supposed to be of like great stature and experience, who represent their communities, whatever that may be, whether it be business, whether it be identity based, whether it be neighborhood based. And they come together and discuss issues that are affecting the community and they write letters off to the city council or the school board. And I was like, I should apply for this. I was like, how cool would it be? Not only, because let me tell you this, if anyone knows anything about politics, there are not young people there. I just went to a congressional town hall the last week, no young people there. And so I was like, how cool. I was like, you have to be the change you want to see. And I was like, so I applied and I got accepted. And so now I am the only, in terms of a full-time commissioner, I'm like the only person under the age of like 35 or 40. And so it's great because it's like I feel like we often the conversations I'm like representing like a whole couple of decades of people. And so it was like it made me realize too, I was like, as an advocate, it's like we're not limited to the craniofacial space. I was like the tools and the stuff we're learning to share our stories, it goes far beyond that. And sometimes I do talk about craniofacial stuff at these meetings, but a lot of times it's the issues affecting young people, the issues affecting my city. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands. Virginia Beach, Virginia is the biggest city in Virginia. And there's only like it's like mid-teens in terms of amount of people in this commission. So we're representing a lot of people, each of us are. And there's only a couple of people from each like big district. And so
Mhm.
it's like you realize like if you have the ability and the want to share your voice and use it to empower others, you have to do it. It's like if you're a good leader, it is your duty to lead. And that's what I think. But I mean, but in terms of managing all that, it's not easy. Like I'll be the first to admit that I'll forget to respond to an email or a text. I do my best and I try to write it in my planner or my calendar, but it can be really easy. And I think it's one of those things where it's like intention matters so much more, right? So if you want to do good, it's okay to respond to something 2 days late because you're like, if they know that you're doing your best and you want to make change, people will meet you where you are. And so it's one of those things where it's like, and sometimes I have an hour in a week where I can do craniofacial advocacy. Sometimes I have a big project happen in that week. And so
Mhm.
it's really one of those things where it's like you use your time as you have it, and there's no one, like there's not a formula. It's just a matter of if you want to do it, make the time to do it. But
Right.
it's not always easy. Like I said, it's an art. Organization is an art. I'm sure you know the same. You got podcast, MC, you're doing all this stuff with Born to Stand Out and CCA. I'm sure you can relate to it, but the managing of time, it's not easy. But it
Right.
is a learned art form that just comes with trying your best every time and learning when what doesn't work and what does.
Right. And you said it perfectly. If you want to see the change, you got to be that change. And
Mhm.
I feel like you basically spoke for the both of us right now. Advocate, you take on many roles.
There's very many hats, is what you're saying.
Yes,
Right, and
thank
so, but that's also a great thing. It's like that. It makes you feel like you're part of a community to know not only am I an advocate with you, Aaliyah, we're also friends. We can also be collaborators. We can also talk to each other. And so the thing I love about advocacy is it's so much more than the advocacy. It's the community that that builds, and everyone's welcome. There is no barrier. If you want to be a part of it, you can be a part of it, and it's always there. There's always people, and so
always.
it really is. It's like it's ubiquitous, which means it's everywhere. And it's especially with social media now, you can be in rural Alaska and you can be
Right.
working on someone in New Hampshire on some advocacy. It really it's the great part about the online explosion with advocacy.
Can't do this alone. Like, oh my gosh, it's too much. Like, we need a whole community.
Yeah,
We have
it's not meant to be done alone. There isn't supposed to be a
right,
first place person, right? There's no one who's the one leader and we're all working under them. It
right,
is a family of people all over the world, really, who just have the common goal of wanting to improve lives for us and
right,
for those who will come next.
right.
So there
Exactly.
is no one right way to do it, one right organization to be with, but it's
Mhm.
just about finding the right people. And I think in the craniofacial space, that is such an easy thing to do because there are so many great people.
So many, and varies in ages. We got
Oh
teens,
yeah.
and we have even parents. I've been seeing
Mhm.
all over. Like, I'm gonna shout out my girl Laura, our Smiles podcast, right? Is that her name?
Yes, our Forever Smiles podcast. What a great podcast.
Amazing. And I just love to see how the parents are getting more involved in learning about their children or child's diagnosis. And I feel like it starts with us, the lived experience, but then it goes to show that we need to hear more perspective, the siblings, the parents,
Totally.
like how you said, this is community oriented. And just seeing podcasts like that and just podcasts like live experiences, I think Iva Blue and Ashley Barber had their own podcast, and I love shouting out these resources because that, as advocates, that's what we're meant to do.
We've met so many amazing people.
That's what I'm saying. And I want to brag about you even more because you have done so much. I've seen you at so many conferences, making speaking engagements. You spoke at ACPA in 2024, and you are the youngest one on the panel. And if you can tell us more about what the theme and the message was for that panel and how you felt afterwards.
Yeah, so I got a really cool opportunity to be a speaker on a panel along with an array of other facial difference advocates at the American Craniofacial Cleft Palate Association meeting, which for those who don't know is like the big governing body for a lot of like the umbrella of craniofacial conditions. So like like the American Cancer Society, of course they do cancer, and then for craniofacial conditions we have the ACPA. And every year they have an annual meeting, and all these really awesome doctors and research students and medical students come together and they listen and they share research, they talk to each other. And for the first time, there was a panel that was all people who were patient advocates. And the topic of this panel, which I think it was really something special, it was integrating patient experiences into the ACPA.
Mhm.
So at a lot of these conferences, these medical conferences, it's where they decide the standards of care or where they decide how they're going to be issuing certain guidance or like this is also like where they publish research papers. And
Mhm.
so it's like you have all these doctors who are publishing papers and research about people with conditions. But very rarely do you have the people with the conditions present in any of these discussions on any level. And of course, it's not one of those things where doctors don't want us there. But this panel was the first time I mean, you remember too, because you were in the audience being very supportive. But afterwards, we had so many doctors and coordinators and nurses and surgeons come up to us and be like, I never thought about that. And so it was one of those things where it was like, I realized like, well, this is something that we could genuinely make some change on, and we could change the way we care for patients. Because a lot of people too, there's this misconception that, a lot of the really good craniofacial organizations do a lot of international work.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of work to be done in terms of advancing care on a domestic level. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure parents know, I'm sure people who have friends with craniofacial, I'm sure people with craniofacial differences know, but medical care in the United States is not perfect.
Yeah.
And I mean, a big part of that is that the voices of those with craniofacial conditions are not present at the table during a lot of important conversations. And having that panel, that was the first time I think that idea was presented in earnest to all these great professionals. And so I
Mhm.
mean, getting to be a part of that, and I don't even know if I was 20 yet. I think I was 19 when I spoke at this panel.
Mhm.
I was barely out of high school, but I was like, when I thought about it, I was like, I have been an advocate for 5 years. And I was like, I've seen and met so many different people. And when you are an advocate, you're not just speaking for yourself. You're speaking for everyone behind you. You're speaking for everyone you know. So when you go up there, it's not just Jackson Doane or Leah Booker speaking. It's us and everyone we know, everyone we don't know. And so it was like to be the voice of so many people, to be the voice of young people, especially. And
Mhm.
what I really stressed was that we need to collaborate. Regardless of where we come from, because depending on the region you are in the United States, a lot of times you work with that organization that's close to you for craniofacial advocacy. But I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, we've got to come together advocate to advocate. Because I was like, what's really going to show doctors and insurance companies and even politicians, which know we'll talk about in a little bit,
Right.
that we mean business and that we really want to create change is to show that we're unified in this front, that the quest to make a better world, both medically, socially, and even on a political scale for people with facial differences, is such an important cause to us that we are able to unify under that cause.
Right. Right. I totally agree. Finally realizing, okay, it's time for us to own our story, not only, for these organizations, but spaces like ACPA, to clinicians, therapists, speech pathologists, letting them know and inform them how we were in that space as a patient, feeling overlooked,
Absolutely.
feeling invisible, feeling silent, feeling choked up. And just to see you on stage, it really meant a lot because not only you were the youngest one, but you were very articulate. You showed out for our generation, and that's why I had to come up on the mic, and I was like literally crying because I was like, I felt it. I felt not only your speech, but everyone on that panel. It was Iva, BK, Kareem, Dina. Who else? Am I missing? Was Kathleen on?
Kathleen was on there, yes. Lydia was on there as well. Gareth was on there. I mean, it was truly a Mount Rushmore. And I felt like at times I was like, I'm still young compared to like these people and all the work they've done. But
Yeah.
it just goes to show you like, gosh, there are so many people working as advocates, both like professionally and then also just like people who just put so much of their time into it.
Right.
It is very inspiring to see that.
And age is just a number. Like
Absolutely.
our young voices matters, and I feel like we are advocating for that as well, for people to listen to us. I feel like we spoke about that a bunch of times on at ACPA and everything. It's time for them to hear us, time for them to actually accept us at these tables. Yeah, we are, okay, we are young, and we have been, this misconception saying like, oh, like, okay, they're young, they don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, we can put in the work. Yeah, our voices matter, and yes, our story matters too. So I just want to say I give you all the flowers for that
Thank
time.
you.
You sparked the light not only in me but in the whole crowd and CCA as well. So I thank you for everything you do as well. And you balance everything with college and everything. How's college going? Give us an insight. What's
It's
going on?
going great. I'm in my junior year.
Yeah.
And, I am an American government major.
Okay.
So that means that I study everything that has to do with the history of the American government, the inner workings from a local to national level, the current political situation, the past political situation, like everything you can imagine, like all the stuff that like gets people like that's like, oh, we don't want to talk about that. The stuff that you don't bring up at dinner, right? That's all the stuff that I study. And so that's been really good. I'm an editor on I'm one of the editors of the school paper at my school. And I will say I've really fallen in love with writing. And I've been doing so many other things too, which have been really good. My classes are going great. Midterms are coming up. So I'm like, I feel like we just started. Now all of a sudden they're about to throw a bunch of exams at me. So like, wish me the best of luck on that.
This stuff.
But But I mean, it's been going great, and I feel like we have some really cool stuff upcoming within the craniofacial space, which I know people will see and hear about soon. Wink, wink. But
And your project, or we can't talk about that. No.
oh, no, I'm happy to talk about it. This past summer, I did research on, believe it or not, circus freaks. So this past semester, I took a really interesting class that was the history of disability.
Mhm.
And even though I myself am not disabled, there's a lot of overlap in terms of the way society treats people who are visibly different or disabled. In most people's minds, that's the exact same thing.
Right.
And so a unit that really interested me was when we talked about circus freaks. Because now I've always found like the whole circus culture, like it's a really fascinating history if you ever have the time to like look at it or watch any of the cool documentaries on it. But I realized that, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, one of the few semi-dignified jobs that people who were visibly different or disabled could get was working in a circus. And I was like, it's funny because, the typical, I guess the typical thought around circus freaks is that it was a very completely undignified position, that it was a position of people who were entirely abused and who had no control over what they did. And sometimes, unfortunately, that was the case. But a
Mhm.
lot of these people who had dwarfism or who had visible differences, like our visible differences, who were conjoined twins or who had hormonal issues, they were
Mhm.
performers in their own rights, and they, in a way, got back their agency by showcasing who they were. And to me, I was like, these people were the original advocates. I was like, these people got to meet presidents and queens and kings, and they were dignitaries. And so I
Mhm.
became really interested in like the rewriting of circus freak history to make it seem like it was something where these people had no control and weren't respected because these people were respected performers in many ways. And
Mhm.
so what I'm doing to honor them is I'm focusing on a couple different famous circus performers slash freaks throughout history, and I'm creating a sculpture series on them. And I'm going to be exhibiting it at my college later this fall. And you're invited, Aaliyah. We got a seat for you. But it's so exciting to me because it's like, we're finally talking about like 100, 200 years ago. I mean, me and you, Aaliyah, there wouldn't, like for our visible differences, especially when we don't have the great surgery we have now, we would not be able to be doing things like academia and research and science, those really respected professions. We would have been doing entertainment most likely. And it's funny because nowadays everyone wants to do entertainment. And back
Yeah.
then it was like there was some shame to it. And so I became really interested and I actually got to go to Sarasota, Florida, which is where the headquarters of the Ringling Circus used to be. And I got to go to the museum and interview people there and it was so fascinating. But that's something I've become really interested on is like the evolving role of representation within entertainment. Because I feel like it's gone from like that, and then we're finally starting to see the upturn again.
Mhm.
And the sculpture series, of course, which is so exciting because the artistic expression is such a great way to share your story.
Oh, I can't wait to see the sculptures. That's
I'm
gonna
excited, dude. I'm excited to show you. It's gonna be awesome. And I've never done sculpture before. Like I will say, like I am not like I
right.
consider myself to be an artist because I think if you create any bit of art, you're an artist. And I think most people are artists in their own rights. But I was like, I just want to do this. So I literally just applied for a grant at my school and I got it.
Mhm.
And it was just like I was reminded again of like, gosh, if you just want to do something, you should go do it. Like there isn't a right time to start. Like if you want to do something, you don't have to have experience. Like I'm
Mhm.
still like doing stuff. I'm still making mistakes. And I have an exhibition in like a month and a half, maybe 2 months. And so it's like it is like completely okay to start something brand new just because you want to do it. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm so glad I did that because this has been such a fascinating like experiment almost for me.
Yeah. You are the prime example that there is no limitations at
No, there
all.
shouldn't be. Like there's and you know what? I saw a really fun quote the other day. It wasn't a quote. I think it was a post on Twitter. And it was, I guess this is more geared to, or I guess this is geared towards everybody, but it was like especially when you're young, you should try everything because what do you have to lose? I was like, it is the best time to make bets and to roll the dice when you have no chips left. You know what I mean? Because all you can do is gain chips. And in
Yeah.
reality, like most people don't have as many chips as they think they do. And so
Yeah.
it's if you wake up one day and you go, I want to write a book about my experience, do it. Like you have no chips to lose. Like it just if you've never done it before, you have nothing to lose. And that's such like a that's like that can be scary, but it's also exciting to be like, I
Oh,
am
yeah.
just like to be in a, like it's like when you're in a room with people and like I saw the list of some of the other artists who are exhibiting, and these people are real artists, and I'm like I'm in the same room as these people
Right,
because I opened the door and I walked in. That's the
right.
most people are just scared to do that. If you open the door and walk in, you're on the same playing field as everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Owning your power, owning who you are,
Absolutely. And you
clearly.
do own it. It's only yours.
It's only yours. And I tell everyone, everyone keeps asking me the question, how are you able to go into these spaces? How are you able to public speak? You just own it.
Well,
You own
this is the thing about having a visible difference and even being just a unique person. You know, that's a lot of people with visible differences on top of being visibly different or disabled. They also tend to be unique individuals,
it.
right? They tend to be eccentric, which one of my favorite things about people is that they really own who they are. And so it's like when you're an eccentric person, you're a visibly different person, a lot of times you have to open up that door for yourself to go someplace. And it's like what's great about that is that's how you know you've earned it, right? You know you've earned it when you said, I'm gonna do this and you do it and
Yeah,
it's okay. And so it's just like I mean you know this. It's like if you want to be someplace, you gotta be the one that picks up your 2 feet and walks yourself there.
exactly. And you said it perfectly clear. We're all artists in our own way,
Oh
you know?
yeah.
And it's really taking that leap of faith, walking into the unknown and not knowing where you're going to go. But that's the exciting thing. You don't know
Oh
how
yeah.
it's going to go. I think we have been like so like used to prone or register in our brains that like to think of the negative scenarios, like the worst of the worst, which is so crazy because like what in our minds, makes us create, scenarios like that, or make us think, oh, we're only out or we're only supposed to be expected for the worst and everything. And it's
Mhm.
like, with us having visible differences, our visible difference is it's an advantage, Like I
Yeah.
always born to stand out in our own way. But once you
Mhm.
own that, okay, that's a whole nother thing. I can really just go into different multiple spaces and try new things. And advocacy, like you are the prime example. You did puppetry for
And
human.
I did not know how to do puppetry before I started. I literally was just like, I love the Muppets. Let's make it happen.
That's what I'm saying. And you're the commissioner for human rights in Virginia Beach. And you're the ambassador for Operation Smile. And you received one of the biggest awards it was in Colorado, right?
It
Was it in
it was
Colorado?
in Utah.
Utah, right?
Yes,
And
I not to toot my horn because as we've talked, the awards is not what matters at all. In fact, it's like the least important part of advocacy is like the awards and stuff. But I mean, I was so thankful. I received what was called the Changemaker Award, and I think there's like I've always that's one of my favorite words to use outside of advocate because I think the idea of being a change maker is it's like it just means you show up to a space and you leave it like it's like you know how like when you go hiking, like the rule is like leave it as you found it. As an
Mhm.
advocate, you need to do the exact opposite. And so that's what being a change maker is. I mean, to be called a change maker and to have Operation Smile recognize me, I mean, not only like I will say this, I owe my life to Operation Smile. I really do. I love them so deep down in my heart and everything they've done, not only for me, but literally hundreds of thousands of children and adults and families worldwide. But I was like, for them to be like, you're a change maker, I was like, you don't even realize sometimes like the words you say, how it impacts other people positively. And
Mhm.
so it was just it really made me realize the value of the word change maker. And I was like, that's what we have to be, change makers.
We
And it's
are,
like so it's like the term advocate can really seem like this intense word. Because when you think advocates, you think of the people on the news who are yelling at
right.
each other. But
Yeah.
it's like, think about it this way. At the end of the day, you're a change maker. So if that's getting a picnic started at your local craniofacial hospital, you are a change maker. And
Mhm.
that's the stuff that helps other people. It's always the domino effect. You don't realize how one little thing, and a lot of times it's not even little, it just seems little. But that
Right.
one thing, it's a domino. So that it creates more. Every one time you speak, you create another advocate. You
Right.
know what I mean? You create someone in that room who, when they see someone with a visible difference or a disability or just a different type of person not be treated well, they're going to be an advocate for that person. So every time you're an advocate, you create more.
Ugh, but no, it's just so good to hear, your wisdom and your insight on things because it truly means a lot. Not only we connect with, our experiences and our stories, but just as us being friends as a whole, I think that brings us our foundation even stronger because
Absolutely.
we're
Well,
able
it's
to make
the
more.
friendship's the most important part at the end of the day, right? Like part of that is it's the building of community.
Community, thank you. Real community and bringing, more people along with us. It doesn't have to be with visible differences. People who have cancer, people who have vitiligo, albinism, like that's the whole point of what we're doing, inclusivity, and
Yeah,
making sure.
it's a parade with never-ending space for people to join.
Right. And my last question for you, because I know we were yapping, but it was a good yap.
It
Um,
was, yeah.
it really was. This was meaning to happen. You see how I'm getting so excited all over again. But anyways, my last question for you, Jackson Zone. Is there any advice you would give to your younger self? Well, let me rephrase it. Is there any advice you wish your younger self had heard?
Mhm. This is a great question, and I had a feeling you would ask this, so I took a second to think about it. And so the other, I guess this was a few months ago at Mass, I heard a really interesting sermon from the priest. And he was talking about how he uses a lot of sports metaphors, which I always like because to me that puts into like good framing because I'm much more knowledgeable about like football than I am like biblical history at the moment.
You're a
Trying to
football,
change that, of course.
you're a
But
football fan?
you said what?
Football fan?
I like to know the rules of football. I like to know who's not. I know. I mean, I'm like I like to criticize those who don't follow the rules.
Yeah, we know.
Um, But he, in the sermon, he talked about just like he was like, what makes people a great athlete and artist or speaker? He was like, you put it all out there, right? There's a Bible verse that's something along the lines of, like foxes have dens, birds have nests, but man has nowhere to lay his head. And he was like, when you hear that, and I might be butchering that, but when you hear that, it's it sounds like bad, like it's like humans have nowhere to be, but he was like, in reality, what that means is as humans, you always have the ability to leave it all out there on the field. Which if you ever played sports, you know that means you give 110%. And I think when I was younger, I was always scared to like leave it all out there, to just be like, this is me, this is my voice, this is who I am, and I'm serving it up for dinner. And you can all eat it, or you don't have to. And when I heard him say that, and I heard it in a biblical context, I was like, how cool is it that as humans, that like the risks we take aren't like, am I going to try to get this fish out of the water from like an angry bear? It's like, am I going to enter a room and try to make new friends? Am I going to speak and share my story knowing that I don't really know how this might go over? Am I going to, if you're a parent, am I going to go meet another parent and maybe really help them? As a patient, am I going to go meet another patient and am I going to be able to learn from them as a doctor with the care even? And so the advice that I would give to my younger self is to just not be afraid to put it all out there, whether that's academically, socially, whether it's in advocacy, whether it's even with yourself, being honest with yourself, right? It all starts with yourself. You cannot be an advocate if you won't even advocate within yourself. If you don't even have the self-respect to care about yourself in that way. That's the first step to being an advocate. But it's just about leaving it all out there on the field. So when you try, give 100%. And even though that's scary, because if you give 100% and you get nothing back, it feels like a rejection. I have never once given 100% and ever regretted it. Every time I like put it out there, even when I didn't get anything back from it, I didn't regret it. So I wish I just would have learned earlier that the fear you get, the anxiety you get when it comes to being your true 100% in any situation with anything you care about, it's a good anxiety because it's knowing that what's on the other side of giving 100%, of just trying, even though you're terrified, because that's what matters, right? Even when you're terrified, you still try. The reward for that is always, always worth it.
Mhm.
So that's the advice I'd give.
Well, Jackson, thank you so much for your wisdom, your insight, and just being authentic, like I expressed so many times, like you just have a great way of words and just a great way of breaking down things for everyone to understand, and your passion, it just shows right through you. Like you are truly a light and you are very infectious when you step in a room, very confident, very poised, very, go-getter, and you explain that and what you just said now. And it made me realize, oh my gosh, I have so much work to do. But
But here's the great thing. Potential can never be wasted.
oh no,
So,
never.
you can't control, and this is the cool thing too.
Yeah,
Even though like you are always closer to the future than you are to anything in the past. We are much closer to 10 years from now than we are from 5 minutes ago. So
right,
tomorrow's anybody's game. So
right.
get on it, Aaliyah. Let's see it.
No. And we have so much ideas and plans for the future for you
Oh, I
guys.
can't wait. I cannot wait to see what tomorrow brings.
Exactly. And I tell everyone tomorrow, I like Jackson, literally everyone like my family members and my friends, they're like, Leah, why are you're always in a positive, upbeat spirit? Like, how are you always like this? And I'm like, your life can change like that. It's just
Hmm.
continue to walk into the unknown, continue to follow your fears. Like fear is just an illusion, you know? I feel like fear is just an excitement that we have been prone or we have been kind of brainwash ourselves into thinking that is fear, but like that's just a opening chapter to a
Yeah.
next thing for ourselves. And it's so cool to hear you, verbally say that because I feel like that is not talked about a lot. And I'm sorry, I'm reading my thing, but I appreciate you so much for speaking upon that. And to anyone listening, please reach out or just follow, stay tuned on what Jackson Doane has. He has a lot of stuff coming up in the future. Your Instagram, if you want to say it
Yeah,
out.
so it's Jackson, Jackson underscore Doane. And if you just look me up online too, connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with me on Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram. And even if like you just want to talk, I love just talking to people one on one. Some of the best conversations I have are when people send me a message with a question. And I sometimes learn a lot from that as well. So it's like, let's always expand the family. So it's like I'm so happy to like get to talk to the CCA audience and like get to have more people in my advocacy family. That's so exciting. So thank you for having me.
Of course, mi casa, tu casa. Come on now.
Absolutely.
Thank you.